There is just so much here that is brilliantly done. Hi there to you, it's great to see you. Welcome back to the channel. Hope I find you well. I'm Jennifer Kirk, welcoming you up here to the loft on Weir Yard. Now today I've got an interesting first look at a locomotive from a company which at first glance I'd never really heard of. They're called Irish Railway Models, but they're actually the sister company to Accurascale, and that's where things get really interesting. Now, Accurascale are bringing to the market in the UK some really high-spec models. That's what they've been promising. And this model, the A-Class from Irish Railway Models, gives us the opportunity to see what the company has already delivered to the market. They promised factory-fitted high-quality speakers, an easy DCC fitting option, exceptionally high detail, a powerful motor, lots and lots of adhesive weight, and also a built-in stay alive that you don't need any soldering to make use of. It just works with any decoder that you plug in. Is this too good to be true? Well, Irish Railway Models have very generously sent over one of their A-Class locomotives, so I can take a good look at these and show you what you can hopefully come to expect from the forthcoming Accurascale models. Also, don't forget that if you haven't already got anything from Accurascale in your collection, then the Monday Club wagon offers an ideal opportunity to dip your toe in the water. At a price of under £30, this wagon is a high-spec Accurascale MDV wagon in a prototypically accurate livery, but with a couple of extra special embellishments to make it unique to the Monday Club. This can be bought for under £30 and gives an ideal introduction to the world of Accurascale's high quality models, and I'm sure that you will not be disappointed, and certainly hopefully today's video will give you an insight into what to expect from their forthcoming locomotives. So come with me in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Today's video also comes with the support of PD Models, makers of a whole range of 3D printed kits and accessory detailing that brings something special to your model layout. And don't forget as well that today's video will feature a full DCC fitting guide. For those who want to go for the sound fitted option, we've got the ESU Locksound V5 decoder with the EMD sound file, which has been very kindly supplied with this locomotive by Irish Railway Models. But for those who want to go for a more conventional plain DCC fitting, we're also going to be test fitting the Trainomatic MTC 21-pin decoder, and this is a 4+2 function decoder, and that's important if you want to make sure that you operate the maximum number of the lighting functions. The decoder must be a 4 power plus 2 logic output and not a 6 full power, or you will not experience the full 6 lighting functions that the decoder can otherwise access. But without further ado, let's take a good look at this A-Class locomotive from Irish Railway Models. I've seen a lot of speculation online as to just what to expect from an Accurascale locomotive, and actually there is no need to speculate, there is no need to wonder, and the reason for that is because Accurascale's sister company, Irish Railway Models, have already produced a locomotive. It's been on sale on the market for a little while now, and Accurascale have very kindly sent over one of the examples just so that you guys can take a look at just what you can expect from the forthcoming Class 55, Class 37, Class 92, and just have a look at some of the innovations that are built in as standard, not just to the Irish Railway Models, but are proposed for the forthcoming Accurascale ones too. Now, the A-class is a very long-lasting prototype. There are a number of these locomotives preserved, but they lasted in traffic from the mid-1950s when they were introduced, right through until much more modern times. I believe it was in the 1990s when the last of the locomotives were finally withdrawn. Now, they went through a number of detail iterations, not least the big one was that originally they were built with a Crossley engine. And this was actually, I think it was the same or a very similar engine to the ones that were fitted to the Metrovic Class 28, which were incredibly troublesome for British Railways. However, unlike British Railways, Irish Rail persevered with the class of locomotive and actually opted to re-engine the fleet over a period of time with an EMD prime mover, and they proved incredibly successful with this new power plant installed, so much so that they lasted all the way through for around 40 years as a mixed traffic locomotive. So money well spent on that re-engineering process. Of course, British Rail was faced with them being a small non-standard fleet, whereas Irish Rail had kind of gone all in on the class. Irish Railway models have produced the A-class in the guise not just of its original release with that Crossley engine, but also the later re-engined AMD ones. So they can actually produce these for pretty much every member of the class for all periods of their existence. They come in the box style that we've grown used to from a Curascale, this lovely, durable, heavy-duty card. But actually they come with the green with the line drawings, which is not dissimilar to the Monday Club wagon box. So I really do like this. We've got the line drawing of the locomotive, and I'm just going to show you the catalogue number on the end there. So we've got Irish Rail A/001 class, with the catalogue number IRM quadruple 1-007, and this has the running number 007, so I'm going to nickname it the James Bond locomotive, and it's in the livery of Irish Rail Super Train, and this is the very iconic black and orange that really is probably one of the more popular liveries that Irish Railway modelers go for, and certainly there's been at least one other locomotive model on the market for Irish Railway modelers that I've seen produced in that very colourful livery as well. Inside the box we've got the paperwork, and again, just as we've come to expect from a Curascale, Irish Railway models don't disappoint with their information here on really just how it's all put together. Now, I know that you always get the usual suspects moaning about the cost of things, but just take a look at this. This isn't like models of old where you would have a one-piece body moulding, maybe some handrails if you were lucky, and there wasn't much going on. With this is like a Swiss watch. You can see all of these pieces that go into these models, and actually it's something that some of the other manufacturers have cottoned on to, producing these exploded diagrams just to show people how much work and effort goes into these highly detailed models. And if for whatever reason you damage any of these parts, you have a handy reference. You know exactly what part you're ringing them up and saying, please, 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 do you have one of these? Which is potentially quite useful. Bear in mind that at the factory, there is probably a number of people employed to hand assemble these. So really, you are getting an exquisite Swiss watch of a product. The other thing as well here that really catches my eye, before we've even seen the locomotive, is this booklet that comes in here. And at initial glance, I thought this was a reproduction of some kind of commemorative booklet that was produced back in the 50s when these locomotives were first introduced. We've even got the price tag of 4D, but no, we've got Irish Railway models down the bottom there. And what this actually is done in that 1950s magazine style. We have got a really lovingly put together booklet about the prototype that these are based on, but also with information about the model. And one thing that I really do love are these period adverts, and these remind me of my father's old collection of they were actually road haulage magazines, things like Commercial Motor from the 1950s that he'd got from his father, and they had these wonderful period adverts styled like this, and the layout is just perfect. This is an amazing little piece of information that just shows how Irish railway models, just like a Curaçao, do like to go above and beyond. So we've got a full history of the class here, and this goes into it in great depth, which is really, really nice. We've also got a picture there of Oliver Bulleid, and sometimes it's easy to forget that he was also the chief mechanical engineer from 1950 to 58 on Irish railways. I think people more commonly associate him with the Southern Railway in the UK, but actually he had a very distinguished career in Ireland as well. So we're running through here. We've got another one of these lovely period adverts, and then we've got a testimony from a gentleman who was a driver of these real locomotives, which really kind of humanises not just the locomotive and their quirks, but also the people who worked on them. And you can see there, that is the Super Trains livery, the black and the orange, which is very, very iconic for these locomotives. At the back here, we've also got some information about digital fitting. We do have detailed differences between the Crossley version and the EMD version. Irish railway models have tooled up for all the different versions, so this can represent all periods in the class's life, and this does allude to the really, really innovative way that we DCC fit this. Now, it comes with a pre-fitted stay alive. You don't need to add a stay alive to this. The speaker comes pre-fitted as well, and it is a very high quality speaker by the looks of things. So all you need to do, even if you want to go full sound with this, is just fit a preloaded 21-pin sound decoder chip, and they recommend the ESU lock sound. It's been optimized for that, and they have actually very, very kindly sent over a preloaded EMD sound file decoder, which is specifically for this locomotive. On a lock sound 5, and this is the A-class EMD, and we're going to be fitting that later on. If you just want to go down the regular DCC route, the decoder that we'll be doing a test fit with is the Train-O-Matic 21-pin, and this will be the MTC version that has the 4+2 logic and power outputs rather than the 6 full power outputs, because going on experience, I suspect that if we use 6 full power outputs, then the last 2 are going to be ignored by the locomotive because it's looking for a logic output. So at least with this, we get 6 different lighting functions. For DC users, the blanking plate comes with a series of dip switches, and you can turn on and off these 6 lighting functions as outlined here. If we do go for that full sound installation, we've got a full list of the sound functions, and what I really like is not just all of those different lighting functions, and there are quite a lot, plus the regular sounds. We've also got programmable station announcements. There's 2 different CVs for these 2 different function keys, and you can have station announcements for the up journey and the down journey, essentially the same announcements but in reverse order. For the Belfast line, the Sligo line, the Westport line, the Galway line, the Tralee line and the Cork line. So there's a lot of variety there, and I do look forward to perhaps having a play about with those. And then we finish off with this lovely period style advert. But I'm going to get into trouble with Zoe if I don't actually get the locomotive out and start talking about this. I mean, we've spent, just looking, I've been recording for somewhere in the region of 10 minutes here, and here is the main feature. Now it comes with a little detailing bag. We've got coupling for one end, it comes pre-fitted with a coupling on the other, and some extra detailing parts which I believe maybe to do with if you want to take the other coupling off and fully detail it up. But I do like it when manufacturers do this, because then you get the best of both worlds. A fully detailed front end usually, but also the means to pull a regular train. Now, the first thing that really strikes me as I take this out of the box is just how heavy it is. There is a lot of weight in this. It really does pack quite a punch. And I think one of the reasons that they're able to do this is because of this locomotive's party trick. And I'm going to show you that now. The detail on the roof is three-dimensional there, separately fitted items, but it provides a really useful and durable purchase just to remove the roof. And there's no screws in there. The only screws you see down there, they're holding the locomotive body on. We don't need to touch those. We've got the power pack here, factory fitted. And this is something that is going to be standard as well on the Acura scale locomotives, and it'll be interesting to see just how reliable the performance is with these. And it means there's no soldering whatsoever. So I am intrigued to see just how they work with the Trainomatic decoder as representative of other brands other than ESU, and just see if they work equally as well. That does interest me. We've got this pre-fitted speaker. There are actually two speakers. It looks like a bass and a treble to some degree. And that is a really high quality speaker, fully enclosed, fully fitted, so you're automatically going to get the best out of that speaker, because there's no chance there for it to be improperly fitted and sealed. And that sits directly underneath those exhaust vents on the roof, which, as you can see, do allow a path for the sound to escape. We've got 4 tiny little high quality neodymium magnets, and then we've got a full see-through roof fan. Nothing drives that, it is purely scenic, but certainly it does look nice. And that's where our decoder goes. On the standard model as it comes out of the box, those are the dip switches for DC users, but we're going to be removing this and adding a decoder in. Now I can feel it is all-wheel drive to both bogies, and with that huge weight in this, I can imagine that this is going to be an unstoppable beast. And I will be putting it to the test, I think, with my 16-ton mineral train, just to see how well it performs up and down gradients. The cab detail in there too is really, really nice. You can see that the back of the cab has all that detail picked out. Really nice. The desk as well, it's fully detailed, and all the different colours are picked out. The doors don't open, but I always found that a bit gimmicky on other manufacturers' models. We've got really nice slender blackened handrails, and it's really nice. This livery application, it's iconic, but it is so well done. And then we've got metal grills on there. I do like that drop shadowing on the 007S on the running number of the locomotive. And looking to the front of the locomotive, again you can see we've got the light cluster characteristic of the EMD prime mover fitted locomotives. This represents the locomotive. Later on in its life, we've got the IR for the Irish Rail logo there. Really nice. It's quite simple. It's I suppose when you're not used to it, like somebody from the UK, you just wouldn't, you can see that for the innovation that it is. It's a bit like the BR double arrow. Quite a clever logo, really nicely done. Those lights do look great. I'm looking forward to seeing just how many of these lights work. And those windscreen wipers, they are scale thickness. Those really do look nice. They're not a chunky plastic moulding. They do look to be etched wire. This end of the locomotive, all the buffer beam detail, and below the buffer beam is fully fitted on there. There's nothing for the user to need to add. We do have a little bit of oil leakage from this part of the transmission. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. But if you see some shiny fingerprints, that's just because I've probably got a little bit on my fingers. The other motor bogie there is not affected, and you can see that we've got, in a self-centering mechanism, this coupling is pre-fitted. All the buffers are spring-loaded, a little bit stiff, but they are working. And at this end, you would have to remove that, I'm guessing, an air cylinder, and you can see there the attachment underneath for the other coupling to go on if needs be. Again, we've got wire couplings, separately fitted horns. These are really, really nice, but they look totally delicate. They are what looks to be really scaled, but they are quite durable. It is standing up to the handling. There is a slight prismatic effect on the glazing. You can see there it's not quite flush. It's no different really in some respects to other manufacturers. Slight bowling effect on those porthole windows, but again, it is all nicely done. I do like these separately picked out yellow pipe details underneath. There is so much going on, and those cast Commonwealth bogies are a wealth of detail. Really, really nice. One of the things as well that the Irish railway models are set up for, because of course Irish railways are 5'3" gauge, not 4'8½". Now, as they come out of the box, they run. They're set up to run on OO or HO track. But if you want to go the whole hog, there is the space there to pull the wheels out to a more prototypical, I think it's 21mm, so that you can actually model proper Irish broad gauge. And again, it's a really nice touch. I think it acknowledges that for practicality, most people are going to be running these on OO track. But for the modelers that want that authentic, wider track look, they are well catered for. Overall, I'm really impressed with the level of detail. Cab interiors look really, really good, and I'm looking forward to just seeing how the cab lighting really emphasises that. And this is an area where DC modelers are not left out. With that range of dip switches on the blanking plate on the DCC socket, they too do get some level of control over whether they want certain lights on or off. One thing worth noting though is that the Stay Alive will only work on DCC. This is absolutely normal, but DC modelers just need to be aware of that. The roof hatch detail really is great. As we've already shown before, the detail on it is very robust and stands up to being just carefully levered off with a nail underneath this extra detail. We've also got lifting eyes which are separately fitted, and you can see an air gap all the way through. Even that rivet detail is just so well represented. Everything about this is really, really nice. When it comes to DCC fitting, what I'm going to show you is two different fits. One with the Trainomatic decoder, but also the ESU Locksound V5 decoder that has been pre-installed for this very locomotive. And we'll just see how the functionality varies between them, particularly with all those different lighting functions. When it comes to DCC fitting, it really couldn't be any easier. I'm bringing in my trusty jeweler's screwdriver set, but honestly, there isn't really much to need to do. That roof comes off without needing to undo any screws, and we've got the speaker pre-fitted, the Stay Alive pre-fitted. So I'm just going to turn this round. Do remember which way round the roof hatch goes. So it's the fan to the Stay Alive end, as far as I can tell here. What I'm going to do is very, very carefully just break free, lever up the blanking plate, and that comes out quite readily. And we can see those dip switches on there, all numbered, and look to the instructions for which different lighting functions they control. First up, I'm going to try this decoder. I just want to see how a standard decoder works and just how well we fare with the different lighting functions. I'm also interested to see how that Stay Alive functions with a non-ESU sound decoder. So I'm just going to take this from the packet. We need to make sure that we get it the correct way round, line it up with the pins. There we go. And then just gentle pressure. And you can see those pins are all the way home. Now I'm going to put this on the track and let's test this out, and then we'll come back and just see how the ESU decoder fares. Right, I've got the locomotive on the track now, so I'm just going to turn the lights on with F0, and they've come on that end. And do we have any marker lights? No, we don't. So that's actually really useful, because that means if I just change the direction there, you can see it comes on at the other end. So that is perfect for when it's hauling a train. If I turn off those lights on the F0 key and hit F1, let's just take a look. So F1 controls that end, and that's irrespective of which direction the locomotive is set to go. If I press F2, then we've got lights on the other end. Let's just see now. So F4, F1, F2. So there's some quite complicated lights going on here. Let's see now, F5 and F6. Right, so I just see there on F6 those top lights are coming on, and on the other end F5 is giving me that end. So, and they're again not direction controlled. So off the Train-O-Matic decoder, we've got 6 lighting functions. We don't have cab lights or engine room lights, but we are getting all 6 functions that the Train-O-Matic decoder can produce. In terms of, let's get this locomotive running and let's test out the Stay Alive. So we've got it moving. There's just one set of lights on there. Let's just see how this fares. So I'm going to lift it off the track, and you can see there. So the Stay Alive is natively working with the Train-O-Matic decoder. No soldering required. It's just enough to get it across anything like a piece of dirty track or an insel frog point blade. So I'm quite happy with that. And what it shows me is that as long as you've got a 21 pin 4+2 decoder, then you're going to get the 6 lighting functions, and that Stay Alive is working just fine. Back on the workbench, really easy to hot swap these decoders. Just going to take that out, and let's just remove the Train-O-Matic decoder for now. So I'm just going to take that out, put that safely out of the way. Let's take a look at the ESU lock sound decoder. Quite a lot of packaging for a small decoder, but I guess it's just standard packaging in there. So just going to take this out, and we've got all of the usual solder pads on there if you want to add extra bits and pieces. But we're not going to use any of that. We're just simply going to need to move that all the way to one side. There's like a little plug down in there, which is just impinging on that. So if I can, that's better. I can feel that that's going down and in now. And push that all the way home. Just make sure that's all the way in. That is a really nice snug fit. And then it's a case of putting the roof hatch back on. And let's get this straight onto the layout. There's actually a lot more control over the lighting functions, including the directionality of the marker lights, the red lights, which we don't natively get on other brands of decoders. This is just the way that the locomotive is set up to respond to the different function keys. And I'm guessing that certain things you can turn on and off directionality using CVs, but the ESU decoder is preset for what the locomotive is expecting. In terms of sound, the locomotive really is quite exquisite. And if I just start her up, it has that characteristic sound of the EMD prime mover. And there's a lot of different sounds here on the system, and I really like the announcements. Now, I did touch on those before, so if I go to, I need to turn on F15, so it's a bit long-winded with an NCE. And that is really nice. And like I said before, you can change these in the CV settings. So I'm just going to turn that off. But we also have access to some of the other lighting functions. So just going to try and light up the engine room lights. Really quite subtle. I don't think it's quite showing up on the video. Let's just turn those off. Just about visible. And we do get cab lights as well, which just got to try and remember which function they are on. One thing I've actually found is if you wind on the handbrake and try and move it, it will rev up, but it won't move. It's really quite cleverly set up. Now, in terms of that stay alive, let's just see how that copes. That is actually doing really, really well. And given the need for stay alive really is just to deal with dirty track, there isn't really any prizes for a locomotive being able to... Oops. It's just starting up again. There isn't really any prizes for getting a locomotive to run for yards and yards off the track, because when would you practically need that? Let's get it moving. And you can hear the engine note is changing. It's a really smooth runner, and if I change its direction, we get the flange and brake squeal. And away it goes, lighting changing automatically. It really is quite smooth and sweet, certainly light loco. But let's get this moved over to my 16-ton mineral wagon train, and let's just see how well it performs with a big load. And certainly it's just pulling those away with no issues whatsoever. Even at a crawl, there's no sign of wheel slip. And this is quite a long prototypical rake of 16-ton mineral wagons. They're going all the way around there, and then the brake van is at the back, and it's handling that with no wheel slip whatsoever. So in terms of performance, really this is faultless. As it goes around the back of the layout, it's going to come up against some gradients, and I'll just see how well it does with those. As it comes down the gradient there, it's not actually picking up speed, which is what you would expect. The back EMF is doing its thing. That is really, really smooth. Now the locomotive is starting to climb again. There is a summit over there in the corner. The way the baseboards are means that that is now pulling quite a lot of the train up a gradient, and you can see there's no sign of slip, no sign of slowing down. And certainly if we go back to where the locomotive is, again it's on another gradient, it's on a curve. The whole train is now going up a gradient and around two curves, and there's no issues whatsoever. One of the other areas that I really like is how the ends of the axles can be seen spinning in the bearings, and this is as per the prototype. So if I start this running, you can see there they all start spinning, and you can still gauge this out to the 21mm to represent the Irish broad gauge 5'3" without affecting this because of the innovative way that they're all mounted on the axles. So really impressed with this, and I've not had any problems. We've had this locomotive running extensively on Weir Yard with a very heavy train over a period of about half an hour, and if anything, it's just got better and better in terms of its performance. The stay alive functionality is really, really good. And what I found is that there are no hiccups in the sound. And indeed, if you turn the power to the layout off, it does have a reasonable run on for maybe a second or two, which is more than enough for any application. And this, it must be borne in mind, was with quite a long, heavy train behind it. So there's a lot of energy being stored in that stay alive. So we come now to the scores. And first up is build quality. And actually, in handling this model, I've not really had any problems whatsoever. Even the roof hatch is nice and firmly in place, just held by those magnets. There's no risk of it falling out at all. So really quite impressed with that innovative access for the DCC fitting in there. Even the most scale of detail is nice and robust. There's a really great choice of materials in here, and nothing has come a cropper to damage or being broken off. All the detail that needs to be glued on is well glued on without having any signs of too much glue being squeezed out. So I'm going to give this a 9.9. When it comes to the running quality, this locomotive really shined. On DCC, the built-in stay alive really did help it to overcome even the biggest of dirt spots and insel frog points. With the sound installation in place, it was even more noticeable that there just wasn't any deterioration in that sound. It just kept going. And actually, if you lifted the locomotive off the track, you got at least a good 1 to 2 seconds of the locomotive continuing as if nothing was wrong. With a standard DCC decoder as well, it was something that I noted that it did keep running just as well with those, even though they're not necessarily the conventional way of connecting a stay alive to these decoders. And I was really impressed at how Irish railway models have been able to do that and just make it work so well with other brands of decoders. With a very, very long train, the weight on this model meant that it just had no problems, and I've got every faith that this would probably handle twice that load. Light locomotive on some of the gradients I've got here on Weir Yard, there really was no issue, and I couldn't detect even a fraction of wheel spin in place, and this looks to be one of the best haulage capacity locomotives that I have seen in all the years that I've been reviewing models. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. When it comes to DCC fitting and innovation, this is an area where, quite frankly, this is streets ahead of any of the competition. With that easily removable roof held in place by 4 small powerful magnets, there really is no need for any tools. There's no risk of damage to anything. We've got a factory fitted high quality speaker in there, which means you get great sound first time every time. A stay alive fitted in there that just works with every decoder I threw at this locomotive really is a great touch, and the fitting of decoders was really, really easy. Even a large decoder such as this Locksound V5 from ESU just fits so well. There's no aggro with the DCC fitting. We've got plenty of light functions, and quite frankly, the DC modeler is not left out, with the blanking plate containing a series of 6 dip switches that do allow some level of control over the lighting to be able to make full use of that on DC. It should be noted for DC modelers that the Stay Alive doesn't function on DC, but then you don't expect that from any other manufacturer's Stay Alive, so no change there. And quite frankly, this got a 10 out of 10. If I could have given it more, this model deserved more. Moving on to accuracy and quality of finish, I've studied photographs of the real Locomotive, and really I can't find anything that is wrong and out of place in the shape with that very complex tumble home, and the cab front with all of these curves. It's just realised so well. Looking into those cabs, they are really, really nice, although there is no easy access without taking the body off to be able to put a crew in place. And the cab lighting is something which does show off the interior, and you may have to just be a little bit careful to get a crew into there. One thing I would say is that this model did come with a little bit of lubrication having leaked out the bottom of one of the bogie towers. It didn't affect performance at all, but it's just something that I feel that it's important to point out. We've got sprung buffers, although these were a little bit stiff and some of them were prone to sticking in place and just needing a little bit of a tug to get them back out, but they are there, and I know some people do put a lot of value in those, so it's nice to see that we have been catered for. I also love the windscreen wipers on the cab. They are so slender and true to scale. It really does start to ask questions of other manufacturers as to why they can't replicate this kind of standard of finish. So all in all, I'm going to give this a 9.1 out of 10. Finally, on value for money. In terms of price, we're looking at a really quite favourable £169.99 direct from Irish Railway Models. And that, for what you're getting in this Locomotive, is amazing value for money. So in all honesty, I've got no hesitation but to give this a 10 out of 10. You really do get a lot for that money with pre-fitted speakers, pre-fitted Stay Alive, and also DC light functionality so that the DC modelers are not left out. It is easily converted to Irish broad gauge should you so choose, and the level of detail is quite frankly astounding. It's also a really stellar performer, and it doesn't matter how long a train you throw at this, it will just romp away with it. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. And that goes to give us a really record-breaking 49 out of 50. It truly is a great model, with the sound fitted option as well is really, really good. There's so much functionality from that ESU Locksound V5 decoder, and I'd like to thank Accurascale and Irish Railway Models for giving me the opportunity to see what we can expect from forthcoming Accurascale locomotives. After seeing this, I am really, really excited for the Class 55 and the Class 37, and I think that if they come even close to what the A-Class has achieved for Irish Railway Models, then they are going to be something exceptional indeed, and other manufacturers really need to look out and up their game. It would seem that Irish Railway Models and Accurascale are showing the way ahead, especially on this innovative DCC fitting and the number of features that just come as standard so that the end user really doesn't have to struggle to make the locomotive run, operate and indeed sound the way they want. And rule 1 applies. Certainly this is going to spend some quality time on the tracks at Weir Yard. Well, I hope you really enjoyed that video and found it informative, just taking a sneak peek at what hopefully we can expect from the forthcoming Accurascale locomotives. And I, for one, am really impressed with, in particular, the DCC fitting side of this model. That really easy to remove magnetically held roof hatch just makes it so simple, to the point where you wonder why nobody had thought of that before. And the pre-fitted speaker and Stay Alive really does make this a doddle to get the best out of this locomotive from any decoder, but not least a sound decoder, so really impressed with that. Don't forget as well that if you've never bought an Accurascale model before and want to dip your toe in the water of this really high detailed mark, then we do have a link below in the description box for the Jenny Monday Club wagon, which is made for us by Accurascale and provides a very cost-effective way to see what you can expect from the full Accurascale range. You can also head on over to Patreon and help us to make the videos that you want to see. Please leave a comment down below, let me know what you think of this model. I'm always really keen to get your views as well, and I do read every single comment. But until next time, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and stay safe. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. Today's video also comes with the support of PD Models, makers of a whole range of 3D printed kits and accessory detailing that brings something special to your model layout. Available in a number of different scales and gauges, this range is sure to have something for you, so check them out at the affiliate link down below to see what they have got today to make your model layout something special. PD Models are also well known for their museum quality models that can be made bespoke to order, so do contact them if you have some specific requirements and see if they can do something special for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grantline Products, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Graham Foster, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, and Alan Dickerson. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.